Welcome back. It is the Press Box, and once again, thank you very much for joining us tonight. We're live from the Kampala Serena Hotel. Some of the biggest discussions in Ugandan football will be on the Press Box tonight, and you can join us, you at home, by using the hashtag NTV PRESSBOX and ask any question that you want the Foofa President, Engineer Moses Magogo, to answer this very evening. Later on, we shall be joining up with Joel Kamadi, who will be taking us through all the reaction online, and we shall be picking some phone calls tonight. And of course, Andrew Mwangusha and Max Ali will be joining us on Zoom as well later on the show. So let me quickly introduce the President himself. Mr. President, good evening, and once again, welcome to the Press Box.
Good evening, Andrew, and good evening to our viewers.
I don't know how your operations are going on as a Foofa President now, with the curfew, with the lack of activity. Are you feeling on holiday, or is it as busy as ever?
No, there's a lot of football off the field. Sometimes we think football is played on the pitch, but my biggest job is off the pitch. I'm not a player, I'm not a coach, so definitely a lot goes on behind the scenes. There's a lot of planning, a lot of reading, a lot of writing. So we've been busy, and technology has allowed us to do that.
But I mean, at the end of the day, everyone is talking about the impact of this pandemic on sport. We know about the figures. We know about the television folks, some withdrawing contracts. We know about fans not going to the stadium. We know about Ugandan clubs not managing to have gate collections. Just give me a quick overview. As the man in charge of Ugandan football, how hard have we been hit?
No, definitely every economic activity in the world has been affected by non-movement of people, because the movement of people causes the consumption of the goods and services, and from the consumption of goods and services, it's where different entities generate revenues. Let them be sponsors, let them be the fans themselves, and even football itself by selling football. So definitely we are impacted. We are working on reserves. We are working on what we could have had before, but definitely it's been hard. We are having long discussions with our sponsors. We have had budgets cut by the government, yes, because one of the biggest three sources of revenue in Foofa is government, then FIFA, and then of course our own sponsors. But all these are affected, apart from maybe FIFA. So in the process, yes, without revenues and without activity, we are football. We need to be on the pitch. So we are affected, but we think we'll come out much stronger than we entered it.
We've had discussions about lack of enough funds in Ugandan football even before COVID came in. We can talk about the facts. I mean, since you came in, there's been more revenue in the federation. But now with COVID and probably less confidence in the game at the moment, a higher mountain to climb if we had to get even more money in sport.
I must mention that today when we look at Foofa, compared to 6 years ago when I became president, at that time, there was a lot of lack of confidence in the new team that I was heading. I mean, young, naive, I'll even use the word poor as it always stated. And so everybody lacked the confidence then. Using my team, using myself, we've been able to turn around a 4 billion Uganda shilling budget in 2013 to almost a 40 billion Ugandan shilling 6 years or 7 years later. And that has been out of strategy, that has been out of planning, that has been out of trends. And we think that that is something we have had earned. Of course, there's been both sporting and business success. I'm talking about the budgets, but there's also been sports success on the pitch. I mean, after 40 years going back to AFCON twice, now it has become a habit to qualify, not only at the senior team, but also the under-17 in the same period have qualified. We can see the girls, how much they are pushing. So on the pitch, come back to the local competition. There's been competition regenerated, re-engineered. What we are only like, the sport is back on the pitch. As far as the competitions are concerned, it is the question of the money.
Yeah, it is the question of the money, and we shall be talking about money later on. But you interact with players, with administrators and coaches every single day. Do you understand what they're going through at the moment, Mr. President? Have you talked to these players? Do you know about the hardships in their families now that they can't go to work?
I mean, it is very hard. It's not just the players. Sometimes people forget that football is a subset of society. Whatever affects society affects football as well. We are not special. We are not different. It is only the resiliency of football that sometimes we create our conditions a little bit better. But these players live in the society, and don't look at only players, look at everybody else. Look at the taxi drivers, look at the border people, look at students. I mean, this has affected everyone. So it's not just a question of talking to them. I know in reality that there is a challenge, but it's a challenge that's facing everybody.
The last episode of the Press Box, we hosted the Uganda Golf Union president, Mr. Moses Magogo here, and one of his calls out that the government was reinstate golf. Golf is self-isolation, really. There's social distancing everywhere, and I could understand where he was coming from. Now, some of the major European leagues are coming back. Have you had a discussion with government about the return of football?
No, I mean, at the moment, I must confess that we have not had a discussion. This is a challenge we have in this country, and I've said it so many times, I'll repeat it again on air, that football is not leisure. Football is an economic activity. Football is a forex earner. Football is a taxpayer.
Yes.
Football is an employer. When we are categorized with nightclubs, and then I'm not saying nightclubs are bad, but if you start categorizing us with saloons and nightclubs, then it means that probably we are not being defined very well. I know that sport falls under 4 categories, under 4 sectors. We are part of tourism.
Yes.
And the unfortunate bit is that when the national team of Tunisia comes here and stays in Serena Hotel, they'll say these are the tourists who came to Uganda.
Absolutely.
They will count that among the numbers of the tourists. But it is sport is the reason they came here. We are part of the social sector. We are part of the education sector. We are part of the trade and industry because we are business. We are an economic activity that needs to be looked at. So for me, we need to redefine. And until we stand up as the sports people, nobody's going to do that for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably one of the bigger debates in Ugandan football at the moment, after sport was categorized as a part of the leisure economy. And that is why most of probably the footballers and any other sportsman really in the country is not happy with that. Now, let me tell you something. It's been trending. There's a big discussion in Ugandan football at the moment about the status of football in Uganda. We shall be discussing that. But let me remind you, we shall be opening our phone lines later on. Mr. Producer, are we going to have the lines on the screen immediately? Let me quickly read for you the line though, 0778 722 784. I'll do that one more time so you can write it down, and later on you can give us a call just in case you have anything you want to ask the president. 0778 722 784. Let's talk about the disruption now, because COVID has come with a huge disruption. Schedules have had to be changed. And I want to start off with the Uganda Cranes. Where has this left us in terms of preparations moving forward?
No, by the time the pandemic was declared, we were preparing for CHAN. We had qualified for CHAN, and actually the team was in camp. We had already made expenses into the camping, into the hotels, into the travels. All these are expenses that we had made in anticipation. Remember, by the time we closed, we were even organizing a 3-nation tournament, including Zambia coming over here as part of the preps. All that is wasted, is gone back to the drawing board. But we believe that when we come back, we will have to reschedule. It's not only the cranes, it is almost every other activity. But we don't control the programming for cranes. The programming for cranes is done by either CAF or FIFA. So what we can do is, until we have received the international refixture of the matches and the competitions, then we have no program. Even if we open the league or whatever competitions here, we cannot do anything without the international calendar being opened.
But in terms of the international calendar being open, I mean, you sit on the main committee at CAF. Part of the discussion must be how it's all going to be congested moving forward. You look at the continental championships, you look at the cups across the continent as well. CAF itself has a real job to schedule African football on. And I'm asking that because it's going to heavily affect you financially. You're going to have so much to do in a short time.
I mean, it's a challenge, but the way football works is that it starts with FIFA. And you heard the other day the FIFA president himself saying we're having very good discussions about the international match calendar. Until the international match calendar is discussed as CAF, we can't do anything, because we have to look at the FIFA competitions, where are they placed. That's when we place the continental competitions. And after that, that's when the national competitions are going also to be placed. So at the moment, the discussion is going on. There is a race against time, but all we can do is to wait for FIFA. At CAF, we'll receive it, and definitely we'll put hours into it.
You said something just the other day. You said government should consider sport. I don't know if you are focusing on Foofa only at the moment, as part of the recovery. When the economic stimulus is put out there to help the economy get back on its feet, some money should be given to sport. How far have you gone with that? And have you actually talked to government about this? Are they taking it serious? Do they think football or Foofa needs money as part of the economy if we are to reawaken the economy itself?
I think let me speak on behalf of sport. I qualify. I'm the head of the biggest sport in the country, so I can stand on behalf of sport. until we accept and define sport like an economic activity, that's when you can stand up. But as you are still discussing whether sport is leisure or whether sport is actually an economic activity, that's when. So the debate right now is whether sport is an economic activity, and it's not going to just be an economic activity by acceptance, but by putting in place proper legislation, proper laws that are going to be looking at the industry. Yes, we have discussed with the Minister, Honorable Hampson, we have discussed with the Speaker of Parliament and raised this issue that we need a new law which looks at sport as an economic activity. And when that is done, with rights protected, we are talking about commercial rights that sport can generate its own revenue. But without the commercial rights being legislated properly, without the copyrights for merchandising, without answering things like match fixing, all these things affect the revenues as far as sport is concerned. So before even we talk about anything, the law. Then the second thing, yes, we have put it to government and said, look, we are employing very many young people in this country. We are employing people who don't need necessarily to look at the blackboard as long as you have the God-given talent. We are employing so many people, men and women, in various sports disciplines. And we are such a country that is endowed with a lot of talent.
Yes.
We have demonstrated that without proper preparations, we have been able to be champions on the continent, champions in the world. So what about when we have deliberate plans, deliberate nurturing, deliberate scouting? We believe we can control the continent, we can control the whole of the world. So for us, that is the statement, and I will use the same platform again to continue hammering that, look, we are an economic activity that is employing people, and we are paying taxes. We are paying taxes. We are not just only employing people. I'll tell you, Foofa alone pays over 2.5 billion Uganda shillings in taxes in a year, directly. Now, what about indirectly? These players, wherever they are employed. So, for me, it is something that we must address.
Okay, I'm really excited that you're here because I'm telling you, there are so many questions coming your way, specifically because of what has been happening online. Let me quickly join Joel Kamadi now, though, who is in the other studio, to quickly give us a feel of what is happening online. Joel, what's happening, my brother?
You know what? It's been over 2 months since measures were put in place to combat the spread of the coronavirus in the country. And in that time, many sportsmen have had the going tough. Football has not been left out of the equation, with players and former players and teams, of course, and everything related bearing the brunt. Now, on the show tonight, of course, as you said, Andrew, Foofa President Engineer Moses Magogo will be answering all those queries. And, of course, he'll be telling us what plans the Federation has going forward. Of course, use the hashtag NTV PRESSBOX to join in the conversation. I'll just sample some of them before we go back to you. We have Rachel LNRK, who says, NTV PRESSBOX, please talk about the situation of intellectual property rights in Ugandan football. Clubs elsewhere are reaping hugely from that area, but Uganda has failed to cultivate that area well. Maybe another one here from Ivan Traore, who says, I would like to know what Foofa has actually done to support all clubs in their respective leagues, because it looks like Foofa is just at Foofa House, and that's where they stop. Maybe one more. Ham Parker says, thanks for the show. My question is simple. Why don't we have underage teams programs, even coaches themselves? Why should we wait when we have I think you meant to say qualifier, then panic to hire people for just an assignment? Who monitors these youth national teams? Mostly the boys section, under 23, under 20, and under 17. Those are just some of many that are coming in, streaming in thick and fast. I'll be getting you back in a bit to share more of what people are saying online.
We're very excited, and shortly we shall be back that side, Joel, as we get in as many questions as possible for the Foofa President, Engineer Moses Magogo. Like I said as well, we shall be taking phone calls on 0778 722 and 784 for any of those reactions coming in. Just before I go for a break, though, because I want us to have a big discussion about what is happening between Foofa, the Uganda Premier League, the Uganda Cranes, and of course the future of the sport. The last time we had you on the show, Mr. President, you talked about professionalizing sport in the country, professionalizing Ugandan football. Where did you find it, and where is it now? Because people are talking about intellectual property rights at the moment. People are talking about the imaging of clubs, the profession of clubs. Before we even go into a bigger debate, how far have we come with trying to professionalize sport in the country?
I think our biggest drawback, that's what I must start with, is mindset. We've lived in amateur football since the game was introduced in 1897 until very many key stakeholders, internal and external key stakeholders. When I talk about internal, I talk about the coaches, I talk about the players, I talk about we, the administrators. But also the external stakeholders, the sponsors, the government, you guys in the media. I mean, the whole country is still engulfed with the mindset of the amateur setup. Now, in a professional setup, it's a business. It's a business. When you start a football club, you are starting it to make money.
Absolutely.
When you open a shop to sell soda, you are selling soda to make money. When you open a football club, you are not doing anybody a favor. You are not an NGO. You are actually doing business. I think that's the mindset that we need to be teaching, and that's been holding us back because many key stakeholders, club owners, like I said, players, coaches, they still sit in the mindset. If you're a player and you're on the pitch and there are no people in the stands, why are you getting paid?
Yes.
Where is the money coming from? But somebody will tell you, why aren't you paying the players? You're asking the club owner to pay the players. Where is he getting the money? Is he an NGO? Is he a philanthropist? You know, until we have understood that actually, if you are in a theater and there are no fans watching the show, at the end of the show, don't expect money.
Yes.
Now, until we have, and even the club owners themselves, whatever decision you're making it with the perspective of making more money, such that whatever you are spending is less than what you are earning.
But what's the problem then? Because the club owners you're talking about are staunch businessmen. They should know that if I'm going to buy a club, this is how I'll earn my money. We've been having this debate for a very long while, and we're still talking about...
They are very successful businessmen. But the business of sport is a totally new perspective in this country. We still look at sport, even ourselves, we're talking about government, but even ourselves, the owners of the game, we still look at it as something I can do in the evening when I've finished whatever I'm doing. But business, professional football or professional sport is supposed to be a full-time occupation that is going to occupy whoever is undertaking it from an 5 o'clock kind of arrangement. Yes. So for me, we have the issue of the mindset. If the mindset shifts and we understand professional sport as a business, yes, professional sport as an activity from ourselves who are setting it up, then everything else will be understood. So for me, the challenge is, but there's been some steps taken. If you look, we have been, as Foofa, using 2 tools. The first tool is the Club's Pro Agenda. Okay. The Club's Pro Agenda, we sit down with the club, and we take them through what we call the 11 key players of a successful professional football club. This is FIFA taught material. When they were bringing club licensing in 2006, they followed it with the material. This is how a club converts from amateur to professional. These are the steps. And we have sat down with each club, with the management of each club and said, guys, look, as a Foofa, we are an example. I told you the story in 2013 and the story today. And whatever we have done things that clubs can do, whatever has been done at Foofa. Now, right now, we are a victim of our own success. People look at Foofa as a money machine, yes, as money is flowing. I think every drawer you open at Foofa House has some money in there. But the fact is that we have worked very hard to get that image. I'll call it an image. Because definitely, we have also increased on our expenditure. We are spending a lot. Because we are also earning compared to what we were earning before. So this mindset, put together with the Club's Pro Agenda as a tool, that tells the clubs what to do. Then we follow it with the club licensing. Club licensing is not a punishment. It's a tool for development. When we come to Mbarara and we say we cannot play football on a pitch, which is looking like the way the pitch is. Yes. It's not because we don't want Mbarara as a team. Actually, as Foofa, we would love to have a very strong club in Mbarara. But if you don't have a pitch where football is played, and when the club puts in an effort, then the following day some people come and put in a music show, then it comes back to the point of the mindset. You cannot brand the league, you cannot brand the clubs without having proper infrastructure that is going to be on TV. You're a TV person yourself. You know how ugly a picture looks when the pitch is bad. Absolutely. So you are going to ask us to go and look for sponsorship. It is the easiest thing everybody says. But why don't you get sponsors? You must create the brand. The first step Foofa did was rebranding. Yes. We decided to create the brand. We decided to protect it. We decided to promote it out there. Wherever you go, even in town today, wherever you look, you're most probably going to see Foofa. Either on a logo somewhere, on a Shire, on a car sticker. We did that deliberately. And this is what the clubs are also supposed to do. create strong brands. The moment, what makes the English Premier League the value in terms of money is not the English Premier League brand. It is the brand of Manchester United.
Yes.
It's the brand of Chelsea. So the moment the clubs are weak, the brands of the clubs are weak, then the brand of the league is going to be, weak. Then that's going to be its price in terms of the value that you sell it.
I'm telling you, you've opened the can of worms there, Mr. President. I want to go for a break now, but you've opened a real can of worms by talking about clubs, because some club officials are saying you actually have abandoned them. They're saying you've abandoned them. They're saying that you're not giving any money to the clubs to help, and yet they know you have received money from FIFA, money from CAF as well. They're saying the legends are not taken care of out there. They're asking what Foofa is doing for these legends. And by the way, just to let you know, club chairman sat down the other day and wrote a letter to the Minister of Sport suggesting each club should be given 50 million shillings to go through COVID because Foofa has abandoned them. So we shall discuss that when we come back from the break. Also, we shall talk about the community clubs. I'll be taking as many phone calls and as many messages as we can. And also crossing over to Mr. Maxali and Andrew Mwangushi. Back, you're still watching the Press Box, and thank you very much as always for joining us. We're still taking in as much reaction as we can. The hashtag is NTV PRESSBOX, and later on in the third segment, we shall also be picking phone calls just to know what your questions are to the Foofa President, Engineer Moses Magogo, who is here with me in studio. Before we went for a break, I wanted to ask you something I saw you talk about, I think 2 weeks ago, the composition and formation of Ugandan football clubs. How can we change the culture of support in Ugandan football? And it made a lot of sense to me, because you talked about introduction of community clubs or having clubs based in communities. Because, I mean, we all like international football, but when someone says Manchester, you only think of City and United, really. So if you're living in Manchester, you're supporting one of the two, meaning the clubs get a lot of support. We have tried to do that here in Uganda. But just a quick recap, what was your view? What is it with community clubs, and how can then that transform into huge support for clubs in Uganda?
I think, like I put it, community clubs are the solution. Community clubs are the future. And you need to understand what exactly community clubs are. In Uganda, we have clubs that have the potential to become community clubs, but none of them is a community club by definition. A community club should be a club that belongs to the community. The owner is the community. And because there are very many people, they need to congregate themselves into an entity that owns that football club, meaning that whatever individual is no bigger than the club. Whatever the strength is in the numbers. The more people, if you brought $10 and you are 1 million people, that would be $10 million. If you are one person and you brought $10 million, you would be one of the richest people around.
Yes. So
the power is in the numbers. When the numbers own, I'll tell you, most of the successful clubs on the continent, in the world, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Al Ahly in Egypt, you know, these are followed by very many people as the fans. So what happens is that when you create the entity, you must not only create a membership, because the club can have as many people. You'll agree with me that the top clubs in the world have fans up to Uganda, up to the villages in Uganda. But those are probably not members. But then the club will have members, the people who are recognized, the people who vote for the club president. And then the club president has the responsibility of working for those people. At the moment, what we have is the rich man who has some money, then he'll go to Villa, then he buys players, and eventually we call that a community club because it has very many fans. No, the ownership of that club is still in abeyance. So for me, what I was suggesting that communities like Mbale, like Lira, like Guru, like Arua, like
Onduparaka is a good example.
Like Onduparaka, you know, these are communities, and people have a reason why they support these clubs. And they have the power. Don't just give them the reason, give them the power to choose the leadership, so that it is indeed their own, that when they decide to disagree with the leadership, they have the opportunity to change it. Now, when that membership is done, it can create a congress, it can create an executive, then it can create a secretariat. If we did that and we had 3-4 proper community clubs, then the rest of the clubs, the private clubs, they're also important. I'm not saying we should get rid of them. But then they will ride along these ones, because they will come in as investors. They will come in as people who are investing. But when Vipers, which is a personal club, is playing with Villa, the competition, the investment, eventually it will make the sport generate more revenues, not only for Villa that has the funds, but also for Vipers that has a good player that they are selling probably to Europe. So at the end of the day, we need to have some few community clubs. But the question is, with the current potential community clubs, are they willing to give away
Yeah.
the opportunity to the fans such that they can.
No, but two questions here, Mr. President. Then what happens is, and I've always wanted to ask you this: would we, or is it even possible for us to change the format of the Uganda Premier League and how it's run, to include regions, to have regions specific regions, make sure they can bring clubs actually to the Uganda Premier League? Because then that would improve a lot.
No, we've done that for so many years. It is still not a solution. The solution in professional football is the financial muscle of the club. Whether you have a club from Lila and the owner is an individual, certain Okero.
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing. So at the end of the day, empower the club by getting proper financials, and they would get these financials empowered from the attendances. Now, that will bring in television, that will bring in the sponsorships, everything else flows the moment you have the game of numbers. But how do you bring a community? We tried it with the drum. And for us, the drum is what we are looking for. And you would see that the whole of Acholi would support Acholi. The whole of Lango would support Lango.
Absolutely.
Then I was telling the people in Igulu, you have the potential of creating a professional football club, brand it, culture it, everything, the nicknames, the language, the branding should look like Acholi, should look like Igulu. At the end of the day, there will be reason for everybody in Igulu to support that.
We have about 5-6 clubs here in Kampala struggling for the same space, not attached to clubs. But the bigger question before I cross over to Joel Kamadi is that you just said we have some big clubs that have the potential of becoming community clubs. Where does this even start? Where does this process start from? No, is it going to be engineered by Foofa? Because the owners at these clubs, I don't think, are willing to cede their power.
No, you know what happens is that people have this tendency of looking at clubs as maybe the next day they are going to start making money. If I gave away my club and then the next day it's about money. So, and it is not happening. So for big clubs like Vida, clubs like Express, clubs like Unduparaka, clubs like Mbale Heroes, these are clubs that have a potential. The current owners have the opportunity to give away the ownership, because even holding on to the ownership is not doing anything. And clubs like Vida particularly, which I know, even the ownership doesn't exist. It is not even there. What happens is just a group of people who are enthusiastic, they love the club. But legally, if you find, the good thing is that we have had discussions, and there's a lot of progress which is being made by Villa. And if we get one, I'm sure it will be a very good model for the rest of the clubs to follow.
Okay, we're going to have that big discussion about what is happening between Foofa and the Uganda Premier League. A couple of chairmen are suggesting Foofa, he's abandoned them. They expect some money because they have information. I'm telling you that Foofa has received some money. But also, we shall discuss one of the biggest and hottest topics in Ugandan sport today. Should the Uganda Premier League be reduced to 12 clubs, or should we stick to the 16? Hey, it's a big one. And so many clubs are saying, absolutely not. It doesn't make sense. Foofa has been suggesting otherwise. But let me quickly cross over to Joel Kamadi first before I bring Mangusha and Maxali in. Joel, what's happening?
Engagement is proper on your side, and what you guys are talking about is exactly what people are saying online. I'll just show you some of the tweets, and there are so many, you might have to give me more time today. Mutinga says, grassroots coaching. Does Foofa have a coaching plan for schools, games masters beyond the Odilo tournament? 2, what is their facilities plan for upcountry cities? And 3, the under-20 reserve league. Many clubs are not able to run the main and the under-17 teams. Will they manage? We have another one from Gombia Aloysius, who says, thank you for hosting the Foofa president. Let him please share with us the bright future of our football association. Maybe one more, Zizu, TMK. We thank Engineer Moses Magogo for the good work at Mengo. There is a need for total independence of the UPL board from the federation activities. Why does it look like Foofa is carrying the UPL board and the league in its handbag? 2 more. Ivan Traore, we did that. We can do Ham Parker. Ham Parker says, thanks for the show. My question is simple. Why don't we have underage teams, programs, even coaches themselves? Why should we wait when we have a qualifier, then panic and hire people for just an assignment? Who monitors these youth national teams? Mostly the boys section, under 23, under 20, and under 17. That's a question that he asked earlier and that I posted to you. Many people would like to know, what is the plan?
He's going to try and answer as many of those questions as he can. But I think now let me try and bring in Andrew Mwangusha and Max Ali, if they are both online with us, to give us their side of the story. Do we have Mwangusha online yet? Can we bring him in so he can give us his side of the story. I want to ask both our panelists at home, first of all, what the president just said. Community clubs here in Uganda, is it a culture we need to bring back? Should we have different regions and different communities, make sure they have those clubs owned by them to make sure the clubs can not only be stronger financially, but also have a bigger support? Mr. Andrew Mwangusha is joining me. You are excited when Toro United was renamed after it was, of course, called Sowana before. You felt it was, going for the Toro and they were going to support the team. Is that the way forward, my friend?
Hi, Kabura. Hope you hear me. Oh, fantastic. Mr. Moses Magogo, the Foofa president, is there. The executive committee made a decision and Toro went down. Yeah, but anyway, glad to be back on the show, and good evening, Mr. President. Kabura, I don't know how far I should go right now because I have quite a number of questions for the president. I don't know whether to pour them in one go or have a first session now and I'll come back. I don't know. Hello? Yes, so I've been listening to the president try to break down, of course, the action plans and the money from FIFA and all. I understand, of course, that the money from FIFA, for example, was, advance payment for what was due Foofa. So it's not like, it was a grant that was given them, without any requirements of them. However, I think we now have to come down to humanitarian grounds or empathy. We have clubs in Uganda that actually struggle or struggled even before COVID. And now you can just imagine what they're going through now with COVID. Now, of course, even big financially, endured companies are struggling. Now you can imagine what the clubs are going through. When they understand FIFA's point of view that the money actually is advance payment and they're supposed to use it for activities that they should use it for, I think they have to look at these clubs and just do something. I'll give you an example. Tunisia and Equatorial Guinea have done something. They've actually given some relief to clubs. Tunisia has done all the way to the lower leagues, same as Equatorial Guinea. Of course, you'll agree that I cannot pit Foofa against Tunisia in terms of finances, but they managed to do something which Foofa can do as well, same as Equatorial Guinea. What Equatorial Guinea has done is they have actually advanced $85,000 to clubs in the top and lower league. And what they've done is they've used their money to give relief to clubs as they wait for that extra, funding to stakeholders, so that when it comes, the FA can just retain it, but at least they've managed to give the club some breathing space. That's something that Foofa can consider doing.
Answer that very shortly.
Also,
Mr. Mwangusha, I'm going to have the president answer that very shortly, but do you want to throw in a second question? Then I can come to you when we have some little more time for the analysis.
Oh yeah, the second question. I'll talk UPL. I'll talk UPL and the board and FIFA later. But now the question I want to bring in, we've just lost a legend, Jimmy Kirunda, and we've had stories of former players that held our flag high but then struggled. Yes, please. Okay. So we've had former players struggle after their active years. And of course, you can't put everything to Foofa. The clubs have got to play a part as well. But here's what we can do. Currently, the Uganda Cranes players were promised $1 million after Egypt's Nations Cup by the president. Maybe Mr. Moses Magogo could have more information on that, whether the president is soon releasing the money or has released the money, or how far we are, or whether they are following up. Because this $1 million, let's say it came through and the players got it. I mean, with the current, financial literacy that is on, and the current situation and the players seeing what's happening to former players, that's money that could give them a huge lift in terms of planning for their future. So perhaps that's something
Sorry, I'm cutting you short because of technology and also how we are managing it on the show tonight. He talks about clubs. He talks about, you know, the legends that apparently Foofa has not been supporting well. But for us to start that entire debate, let me start here. When we hear of Ugandan club chairman writing a letter to the line minister asking him for support, 50 million shillings. And the reason they are doing that is because they say Foofa has abandoned Ugandan football clubs. You have abandoned them. They're saying, basically, you're killing players, Mr. President. What is your reaction to that? Are you helping Ugandan clubs?
I think I need to put some facts straight. First and foremost, as Foofa, we spend money in the league, and a lot of money. And I will break it down quickly for purposes of putting the record straight. As Foofa, we spend over 1.4 billion Uganda shilling per year in the Premier League. And how do we spend it? First and foremost, all the players in the Premier League today as we speak are insured.
Yes.
Inclusive of COVID, that insurance. It doesn't cost us less than 400 million shillings to AAR. We looked for the best that we can get. The second thing we do, that every club that plays on the continent, we undertake the air tickets. And last time, we had 2 clubs playing 3 away matches. And any single away match, in terms of ticketing, doesn't go less than 25 to 30,000. And that would go up to 600 million Uganda shillings. What was our motivation? That we had reached a point whereby people did not want to win the league. Because when you win the league, you have a burden of playing on the continent. So we thought that let us solve so that whoever wins, we continue with the sporting competition within the league. We are also financing the juniors league. Some of these players, these clubs have sold. Like KCC has generated a lot of revenue from sale of players. But these players, that whole juniors league, we spend almost 80 million shillings per club a season. We pay the coaches, we pay transport. And when you calculate that, 40 million shillings per club. When you calculate that across, it's almost 480 million shillings. So when you add up all these expenses, including the prize money, directly we inject not less than 1.4 billion Uganda shillings into the league. And we have not faulted on any of those obligations. So it is very unfair when somebody comes out and says we are not supporting. Actually, we are. And yet, we don't look at only the Premier League as Foofa. We have 1,000 clubs in Uganda for football. I think people think we have 16 clubs. Remember, we are Foofa. There is the big league, there is the regional league.
Yes.
And when you look at our cost of refereeing, for example, in this country, it's over 600 million Uganda shillings.
Per season?
Per season. And somebody talks about the 60,000 which we get from the sponsors for the referees. But that's 200 million shillings.
But the debate now has been, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but the debate has been during COVID-19. The players have needed some kind of relief.
No, that's why I want to just put the facts straight.
Yes.
That whoever is saying that Foofa doesn't spend the money in the league, maybe would say that we are not giving the cash where the clubs would have wanted them. They would have preferred Foofa to pay the players. And that's not practical. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world. It cannot start happening here. But let us look at the current situation. In the current situation, it's indeed true we received the money. But the confusion starts with the clubs going out with wrong information to the public, telling the public that money has been sent by FIFA for clubs, and Foofa has kept.
Let me just say this. Let me just add in this, because you have gone straight to my next question. The people who are saying that you need to support the clubs know that Foofa recently received $500,000 from FIFA. They're also going to receive about $200,000 from CAF. It is coming in at a time when you don't have cranes activities. Therefore, you're not spending money on the cranes at the moment. So shouldn't this money be going to some of the clubs?
You see, that's where the challenge is, where people think that Foofa spends according to the Uganda cranes activities that are there. We have very many different expenditures, and let us understand the funds we are receiving. These funds are not extra funds. They are the usual routine. We received the same funds last year. When we talk about a 40 billion budget, we talk about all these funds.
Yes.
500,000 is just 2 billion Uganda shillings. So this money has been coming in. We get it in January and we get it in July. And this is the money which pays for costs that other revenues don't pay. As we know, money from government looks after the Uganda cranes only. Now, if you see the girls playing on the continent, you see the boys playing under 15, under 17, the under 20 girls, where is this money coming from, for example? This is what this money actually does. We receive it in January and July. So what FIFA did, instead of bringing it in July, they brought it in May and said, look, guys, because of the challenges that probably government, probably sponsors are not bringing money, can you have what is yours instead of receiving? But you will not, and the letter is very clear, you will not receive any money until January 2021. But there are expenses between now and December. So we are talking about empathy, we are talking about, so what happens to the Foofa activities in October, in November, in December?
That were originally planned.
That were originally planned. We are talking about expenses that had already been incurred. Playing sometimes is different from the time when the money is paid. We got a lot of credit supply. The airlines, they will give you the tickets, and when you get the money in July, you pay it. So what happens to the suppliers like the creditors? But when we receive the money, what did we do? In sight of COVID still, we said, look, any internal stakeholder who is demanding any money from Foofa will be paid, such that they get what is theirs.
Yes.
And I can tell you we have paid up to 1.7 billion Uganda shillings, and that money has gone into the industry. It has gone into players, it has gone into coaches, it has gone into referees, it has gone into clubs. For example, clubs alone, we have paid about 250 million shillings to clubs that had expenses as far as the juniors league is concerned, because they had spent money. We said, well, let us refund all what is due. After all, when July comes, we will not have to spend on this. The referees, like I said, we have paid over 600 million. The players themselves, their monies that we are owing from Chan, from the bonuses, all these have been cleared to zero, to zero, to zero. So that when it comes to July, but remember we have salaries.
Yes.
Foofa pays about 120 million Uganda shillings per month in salaries of our staff. We have not cut off this staff. We are not like many
You're one
organizations.
of the very few organizations.
We are one of the organizations that have kept going.
Yes.
And how have we survived? It is because we are being able to pay 120 million Uganda shillings per month as salaries. So if we spend the money now, 50 million per club, multiplied by 16, that's about 800. I think it was about 900 million they were asking for. What about the salaries from July to December for the staff? So it is not as easy as when you receive the money, look at the empathy. You should look at Foofa also. We have activities, but wait a minute. When we received this request from the clubs, what did we do? What we decided to do?
Yes.
Is that they gave us parameters. We compiled them together with other stakeholders. And we compiled this information and gave it to FIFA. And FIFA has insisted they are going to give a financial support that will go to stakeholders, not clubs. Foofa has more stakeholders than the clubs.
Yes.
The clubs are just part of the stakeholders. So when FIFA releases the third, they are calling it the third step in as far as their response is concerned, this is what belongs to the stakeholders. And definitely as Foofa will extend a hand to the clubs. But this is not released. I had Andrew saying, why don't you do like Equatorial Guinea, what they have done,
Tunisia,
and extend and wait. But we don't even know how much. So how much are you extending? Can we extend less? Can we extend more? So we thought that, and FIFA has been giving us assurance week in, week out. We are definitely going to come out. So I call upon everybody to be patient. When the fund comes for the purpose,
yes,
definitely. And FIFA was very quick. They said, we will audit these funds in accordance to the plan, even if we have released it early. So we have a responsibility not to via some of these planned activities and just wake up and say, okay, today I've changed it. Then finally, I would also like to say that there are very many people who have been paid. And I can tell you, ex-internationals, amongst those who have benefited from this payment by the fact that they make an economic value addition to the federation. I will mention names randomly. If I told you a player like Shaka Mpima paid over 3 million shillings, I'm just giving an example.
Yes.
When you are out, he's also a Ugandan living in this situation who has worked as a juniors coach of a club. So he gets paid. Philip Sozi, Sadiq Wassa, Ibrahim Mugisha, Wanyana Christine, all these have been paid. They are among the beneficiaries of this money we are talking about. So when somebody says Foofa has received the money, but we have these people who have worked. So by not paying, just a moment, by not paying the people who have worked and extending the money to the clubs so that they can pay the players are stakeholders, just like these people who have worked, they're also stakeholders.
Now, we shall come back to that shortly. We shall also talk about how apparently you are not allowing the Uganda Premier League run their own affairs. You're holding the Uganda Premier League board. You're deciding everything. You're not being inclusive. The club chairmen are saying decisions are made in Mengo. They're not even consulted. They see documents coming out in the media. But I'll talk about that shortly. Let me quickly cross over now to Mark Sally, who is in the comfort of his living room, to quickly give us his own side of the story. Mark, good evening and welcome to the Press Box tonight. Mark, the first big question for you really is, do you feel Foofa is supporting the clubs enough? Do the clubs suggesting money should come in, do they have a point? Do they have a point, or should it be done slightly differently after hearing the president's reply?
Yes, hi Andrew. Moses, how are you? We are glad to be here. Now, there's when I first came into Ugandan football in the late 80s as a teenager, supporting the game, one of the main things there was always the clubs and the federation being at loggerheads. Mostly, of course, it was the three big clubs that used to take their wars, their fights. The competition was fierce. There were just a few trophies going around. And they took their bitterness to the federation and tore each other apart from there. And then, of course, later on, I got to know a little more about it when I became a licensed player and then got involved. And later, journalists, I know. One of the things that has happened in the evolution now is that because of the spread of power, the new power brokers that have come into the game, and also perhaps the waning influence of those three big clubs intermittently, there's been a difference in the relationship between Foofa, the federation, and the clubs. But what I've seen is that there's always been an issue, a communication gap. Now, when Moses talks about how much the federation is doing for the clubs right there, it makes you wonder why then the clubs would go out and make noise. What I would like for him to paint some light on is communication as well as involvement. The clubs, of course, Foofa, despite the fact that they've made major strides in, say, their relationship with FIFA, their relationship with CAF, their relationship with the government of Uganda, their relationship with the Cranes fraternity, that is players, coaches, fans, and all. The club issue remains, it's the elephant in the room that they've got to address. You're talking about clinching of sponsorship deals. You're talking about cancellation of a league, lawful as it was. You're talking about decisions, those kinds of decisions. How much involvement is there with the clubs? How much is Foofa reaching out to the clubs prior to decision making that has an impact of the kind that I'm talking on the game in the country? And where is the platform? How important is our assembly? There's a time back in the day when it was just, an endorsement tool, one of a group of people that showed up at the end of a calendar year to rubber stamp financial statements and largely ululate and upload the federation what they are doing. Can Moses tell me, can he accept that this is one of the few archleses of an otherwise vibrant federation? Or do I see it wrongly? Or are they doing anything to improve this relationship, the communication bit and involvement?
I have what you said. Let me quickly cross over to Mwangusha. And first of all, Mwangusha, let you, if you have any question or any reaction to what the president has said. You asked some of those questions about clubs. So what is your reaction to what Mr. Magogo has said before we can move to the next question?
My reaction, of course, is regarding the FIFA money and the clubs. He went an extra mile in trying to explain to those who are not aware about the nature of funds and what they are for. But beyond that, he didn't respond to my, I would say, suggestion of perhaps getting into their coffers and relieving clubs of some financial pressure. And when they promised a stakeholder fund from FIFA comes, then they can, withhold that. That's an example that Equatorial Guinea has done. So maybe if he could throw more light on that, well and good. If we can go to clubs, if you can permit me to go to clubs just to supplement on Mark Sally, I think the communication cannot be, overemphasized. One, previously you had a vice president at Foofa representing clubs. You had Dennis Mbide, who was at Villa, of course, representing clubs. Then you had Natural Florence being voted in the 2017, assembly. But then he lost her chairmanship at Express FC in 2018, and then Councillor Chilio Achwanga took over. So since then, you could actually say the clubs have no representative. I mean, Natural Change is there as the third vice president, should be representing clubs, but representing which club? She heads no club, she actually has no representation. So there's that gap. When the FIFA executive is taking decisions, there's no one who is, speaking for the clubs, just because of that gap. And then you also have the board and FIFA. Of course, not the whole crowd can always be present for some decisions, but what the clubs are against is the board going ahead to agree to decisions with FIFA without consulting them first. Now, of course, because the board was elected and represents the clubs as well in certain important decisions, sometimes they go and agree with FIFA on certain things, and the clubs get to know at the same time what guys are knowing in the media. So they need to address that as well. One, the vice president, the third vice president, who is elected by the 16 clubs during the FIFA assembly, no longer being there because Natural Change represents no club, despite her remaining as the VP. And then that gap, the board seems to be agreeing to things with FIFA without the club's prior knowledge. So they could address that. Maybe that's the only way, because now you have clubs, you have KCA.
But let me first of all, before I come to Mr. President, let me ask Mr. Mark Sally to please stop drinking branded mineral water on the press box. You're placing brands on the press box tonight. I think it's not right, my friend. Get a glass and put the water in, and and you have your sip. Otherwise, we are going to be in trouble here by putting brands on the press box. But let's quickly move on. Both the comment from Mark Sally and Andrew Mwangusha is pointing to one debate that has been happening online. Mr. President, the clubs feel you're holding the league at ransom. You're holding the clubs hostage, really. They have absolutely no power. Like Mwangusha has said, decisions are made in Foofa, and the clubs are told about them later. Let me ask, what is the formation? I mean, what does the structure allow? What does it allow? How much power and independence does the Uganda Premier League have?
First and foremost, again, I need to put a few facts to record straight, put the record straight. One is that the vice president, like Andrew puts rightly, is elected by the clubs. As the Foofa, we have actually no mandate until the General Assembly that endorses. And the current vice president was elected by the 16 clubs, 10 versus 6 actually. So the people who nominated and the people who elected are the same clubs. The same thing with the board. That as Foofa, the board is elected by the 16 clubs. They nominate and vote. And the current board is not even a year. If I'm not mistaken, that was voted by the same clubs. So let us get that clear, that this board is not like appointed by Foofa. Yeah. Actually, we have veto powers where we can refuse certain people who have been voted, or all of them, but we have never exercised them. Therefore, let's put that straight. Secondly, is that probably, and I'll take a bit of fault on that maybe there hasn't been as extensive consultations as they could have been, but consultations are relative. Consultations are subjective. You don't have any parameters you can use to call them having been satisfactory or not. We believe that there are meetings, clubs sit in meetings with the board. And the board has been elected to represent these clubs. We know that there are very many shareholders in companies, and they elect a board of directors, and this board of directors makes huge decisions sometimes
on their behalf
without necessarily consulting the shareholders. But that is probably company law, and I'm saying that where we accept that probably our reliance on saying that, okay, the clubs have sat down, they have elected a board, we can sit with the board and take decisions. Probably we need to extend it. But there are meetings between clubs and the board that go on, and very many of them. They discuss their budgets, they discuss. And the second thing, when they say that we are taking hold of the league, the league, the first division league in Uganda, is a property of Foofa. The clubs are participants in that league. Just like
first division, make that clear. We are talking about the big league or the Uganda Premier League?
The first division is the Premier League.
Yes.
We have 5 divisions. All these divisions are competitions of Foofa.
Yeah.
And this is in the FIFA statutes. It is in the Foofa statutes. However, what happens, we have said, wait a minute. Can we delegate this authority to a company, which company is owned by the clubs? And we have done that. We have delegated the authority, and that's how the board comes into existence, how they appoint the board, and all that. So when you come out and say Foofa is holding, we have responsibilities in that company as a special shareholder. And the responsibilities is what we do in the league. Club licensing is a responsibility. Disciplinary matters, refereeing, these are inherent responsibilities of the FA. And what we have is the exact replica of the English Premier League, the setup. It's exactly the replica. So what happens, it is that the commercial matters are the ones that the board should manage. And as Foofa, we don't get into the commercial matters. Should we get an approach of somebody who wants, for example, to buy the rights of the league? It's our responsibility, because this is our league as well, to call the board and say, board, look, there is this offer. What do we do with it? And that's how the Star Times League or deal was actually negotiated. And I don't want to go into that. But for us, our understanding is that there's a good representation from the clubs by the board. So
are they feeling suffocated?
Let me move.
Is it political?
Let me move fast forward to the issue that probably clubs have been raising that we didn't consult them. That is the issue of the 12 versus 16.
Mr. President, please allow me not to have you answer it now.
No, I'm just giving an example using that. That it is a proposal. It's not a decision. So you cannot say Foofa has taken a decision when it is a proposal that is supposed to be discussed. So whoever is saying Foofa has sat down, Foofa can come out with proposals as far as football is concerned. And the proposal is not only on the league, it's on a number of other competitions involved. But that is a proposal. So there's no reason for us to discuss a proposal as a decision.
Yes.
Then when you come to the other decision, probably was the one to end the league. Probably what they were saying now, Ugandans need to understand that some countries we are looking at in Europe do not have a provision in their rules that the league will not end, because they think the league will always end. Incidentally, for Uganda, this rule has been existing since 1991. I last saw it being used when KCC took the championship over Villa in 1991, when there was still a possibility of Villa winning its matches and being declared champions. Remember, Villa that year was playing on the continent of Africa, so was as strong as that. However, it is a rule. Now, you cannot say, why don't we sit down? The reason clubs in Europe are sitting, because there is no rule. Therefore, you need extensive consultations. But here, there was a provision of the rule. The rule was very clear, was applied as is, without fear or favor. Now, as I conclude on this, we must also remember that actually there are teams that would be beneficiaries of a decision. Any decision we make, there will always be a beneficiary of the decision and an affected party. So tell me how you call people when some of them are beneficiaries and some of them are going to be disadvantaged. You cannot have unanimity of a decision from these people. So what do? We engage the board. We sat down with the board. So when somebody says Magogo, when somebody says Foofa, this was a meeting which involved the whole executive committee of Foofa. It involved the members of the board. It was an online meeting. And it was agreed looking at so many factors, which I may not have time here.
I want us to go for a break now. I hope you guys are following the discussion, and I hope you're getting closer to your phone, because after the break, we are taking those phone calls if you have a specific question. But I would want to really focus on the 12 against 16. in the Uganda Premier League. And that is the reason why some of the clubs are saying, you know what, you're not consulting us. If you go for 12 clubs, I've just been looking at statistics here, we are going to move from 240 games to 198. We're losing so much action in there. The clubs that will then go down, which will be 4, have almost 150 workers for an industry where we are employing so many people. Foofa is almost rendering these guys unemployed at the moment. But also we have so much young talent that is coming through. If we reduce the clubs from 16 to 12. So it is a proposal, and I know you have a meeting with the Uganda Premier League clubs on Wednesday, so you're going to probably go on with a debate. But football stakeholders are also watching, guys who love the game. So when we come back from the break, I'll try and engage you on that, and that's why you think Ugandan football clubs in the top division, that is the Uganda Premier League, should move from 16 to 12. It's a proposal, like I said, but I should really have your opinion on this one. It's the Press Box. Quick break, and we're back. Back it is the Press Box, and thank you for joining us until this late in the night. We really appreciate. Send us as many reactions as you can. The hashtag is NTV PRESSBOX. For the final segment of the show, though, we are discussing one of the other hotter issues in Ugandan football today. There's been a proposal from Foofa suggesting that clubs in the Uganda Premier League should be reduced from 16 to 12. And because of that, there's been a very, huge, I should say, opposition coming in from some of the club members. They are saying, first of all, you didn't consult them, which you have explained now. It's simply a proposal, so a decision will be made. But secondly, we are losing so many games. We are losing so many young players who should be coming into clubs because we are reducing the space at the top division now. And we're getting so many guys unemployed. Let me just pick your mind here, Mr. President. I mean, why should we reduce Uganda Premier League clubs from 16 to 12?
First and foremost, on a number of occasions, I've done explanations to this. On Wednesday, we have a meeting with the clubs. We want to listen to them, but they're just also on Friday, we have a meeting with the big league clubs. We also want to listen to them. We want to listen to the coaches. We want to listen to the referees. We want to listen to the players themselves about this proposal. And these proposals, people are looking at the 12 versus 16, but these proposals have very many other wide sweeping ranges of changes that are being proposed that affect even other leagues, for example, other than the UPL.
Okay.
But to be probably precise is that how did it come? Maybe that will answer why we are trying to do this. That as a Foofa, we have an objective. We would want to be one of those, or if not the top federation in Africa on and off the pitch. And we are saying to get there, one of the things is that domestic football must be as strong as ever. Then you'll have proper national teams, then you'll be able to succeed. And that is the policy we do as executive. We give it to the Secretariat of Foofa and say, guys, look, this is what we want to achieve as the executive committee. Come back to us. So normally they have been coming back to us with the reforms. Foofa has done reforms in all areas. We have 8 areas of focus in governance, in development, in marketing. All these reforms are going on. And the results people are seeing on the pitch, sporting and financial results that Foofa is making are out of these reforms. Probably this time is because we are talking about competitions reforms. And in football, we know that football touches people using competitions.
Absolutely.
So that's why probably the debate is coming. But coming back directly to the question is that it is all about our statistics we have looked at as the Secretariat. When they looked at the statistics, they came back to the executive committee and said, guys, look, this is what we are proposing. We would want to go and consult the stakeholders. As the executive, we said, okay, engage the stakeholders. Because imagine if Edgar just wrote a letter and sat in a meeting with the clubs without the executive knowing what is going on.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, go ahead and consult. When you finish consultation, it will come back to the executive to take the decision, and the decisions that are not within our powers according to the statutes go to the General Assembly, so the General Assembly will eventually do the decision. So for me, it is a proposal of not even next season, but the season after.
Yes.
So why 12? According to the reasons, and for me, I'm a debating person. I look at the merits and demerits. Of course, there are merits. Of course, there are also demerits. We cannot say there are no demerits, but there are also merits. And for us, we think that let us debate the merits and demerits and take a decision. We did it intentionally to throw it out to the public and say, guys, COVID is here. People are not playing. Can we use this time and people? And we have gotten very good feedback. All these exchanges going on, for us, we are taking note of a number of things. And eventually, they will inform our decision.
Okay.
But when you look at the merits, or look at the Secretariat, some of the reasons they brought, is quality. When you look at club licensing that has been going on, normally about 10 clubs actually pass the club licensing. Normally. And we say, okay, let's wave on this, let us. And the problem is that the clubs at the top that are trying to do a number of things are going to be moving at the speed of the clubs at the bottom. So you affect the overall product. If KCC is coming out with a club TV today,
Yes.
you know, Vipers is coming out with a stadium of that level. We are saying, no, guys, wait. You are moving too fast. We have to wait and pick number 16, Toro, Andrew's club, that cannot afford the jerseys for a team to play full match. At halftime, the owner of the jerseys has to come and get them from the team.
Yes.
So look at a team at that level. We are saying, look, that is not a problem. Can you play in the big league? Organize yourself, prepare yourself, so that by the time you come into our top league, you will come when you're a team of quality. You will come when you have prepared. You will come when you're a proper Toro community football club, such that we take advantage of the people from Fort Portal who support football.
Yes.
And we are not reducing by saying that when you take 16, close. Remember, we are saying it is 12 plus 16. The big league is going to be as professional as the top league. We are almost having the similar demands. But we are saying, look, don't hold the top clubs waiting for number 16, yet they need to be pushed. If KCC is going to play in the Champions League in Africa, if Vipers is going to play, or Villa, or whatever, whoever wins the league, it is only going to happen if there is proper competition, if there is equal competition. But if you have teams with the players who have taken 6 months without salaries, who are going to games without lunch.
Some people are saying improve that infrastructure first before you chop the clubs.
But you can't. The problem is that what comes, is it the egg or the chicken? What comes first?
Well.
The thing is, without proper branding of the league, without proper games on TV, without proper sporting competitions, you're asking us improve using resources from where? Where are the resources going to come from? We must improve on the quality of the product which we are sending the body to sell. The moment the quality of this product increases, it's going to be easier for us to attract revenues. And when we get these revenues, we will go back to the 16.
Okay, that's an important one. So you're saying we could go back to the 16 after a couple of seasons?
Definitely. That is one of the things. Because right now, if you look at the club licensing that we are bringing up, and you demand all the 16 clubs to fulfill, you are going to find that clubs are not going to be able. I'll give you some of the examples of the few things that we are thinking of what will improve by club licensing. We are saying that the pitch must be green.
Yeah.
And we have been struggling with clubs failing to manage to get where to play the games from. And what we do, we wave a little bit. And people say, Foofa, why did you refuse? Now you are allowing. But at the end of the day, you either have that club or not have it. I'll give you an example. Players must be paid. And there must be evidence of paying players. You are not going to have a KCC, I'm giving KCC as an example, or Vipers paying their players on the 28th of a month, playing against, let me use another club like, say, maybe URF for that matter, who have taken 6 months. Are you playing football on the pitch? Is that really sporting merit? So at the end of the day, the disparity between the top and the bottom is wide, financially. And if it is wide, it is going to cause the quality of the sport on the pitch also to degrade. These players are not bad, but the conditions you are subjecting them 6 months without money, then we are not reducing. We are saying actually 16 plus 12 is 28 clubs that will be professional. And a coach who will get a license to coach professional football, a player who will get a license to play professional football, a referee who will officiate in the professional football, will strictly do professional football. But still, we have left open the amateur football from the 3rd division, which will be all numbers, everybody access the game. But let us have Division 1 and Division 2 very professional.
I like the reaction, and I'm sure his comment on that has gotten most of you guys tickled. So you have so many questions to ask. Let me quickly cross over to Joel Kamadi first for your reaction on social media, and then I will have Maxali and Mwangusha give us one quick comment before I open up those phone calls. Joel, what's happening?
Thanks, Andrew. Engineer Moses Magogo, this is a shared question that somebody has just sent me, and they were asking, how far with the talks with NCS about bringing the game of football back? How far during this COVID era? And do you share the same view that, other sports can come back under certain SOPs and can fans be, excluded from coming into these matches? Do you share that view? Do you want football to come back? Can it come back? What is your take on that? Hold that thought. Let me move on to Samuel Takamushaba, who says, thanks for hosting, Engineer, but community clubs have their inherent challenges, especially management and decision-making. Every fan, especially the Ugandan fan, wants their idea, decision to hold. And then we have Musa Juma, who says, I heard the news that there is some kamani from FIFA. I think you've already shed light on this. COVID-19 stimulus package advanced to national football associations like ours, meant to be shared among UPL clubs. How true is this? I think you already answered that. We have Nabeta Richard here, who says, what does he have in plan for former players and ex-internationals? Menya Umar, I think. Jesse Genesis, why is the federation reducing the teams from 16 to 12? That is what you're talking about right now, instead of adding more teams, since we need more talent to showcase its ability. Maybe one more. Kalanzi Sam, I would like to ask Moses Magogo what Foofa is doing to implement a brand of football that has an identity, and what official Foofa is doing to improve issues of accountability in the game. I believe income and expenditures of the public should be publicly declared. Maybe two more. Uncle Ray, I see him posting something right now. Mr. President, is there any way the Federation can at least extend a hand of assistance to Joel Madondo in Morocco? He may not be in your jurisdiction, but he is our player, and right now he is in a tight situation so far, and that far away from home. That's what you said. We have two more maybe. Macha Collins. Mr. President, what's your take on Ambole Stadium not hosting any qualifier for the Cranes, and how far with preparation to start the renovation of the stadium? Those are just some of the reactions that are coming in thick and fast. I think if you got 2 or 3, we're good with that.
Thank you very much, Joel. The President will definitely answer those as far as we have some time. We have a few minutes to actually wrap the show. But let me quickly cross over to Max Ali and Andrew Mangusha. And guys, like I've said before, first of all, I apologize because we don't seem to have enough time because of Zoom every time you guys are home. But also the topics are very hot, so we have so many reactions. So please allow me to give each of you guys just 2 minutes so we can come back and take some phone calls here in studio. I'll start off with Max Ali. 16 clubs to 12. And the explanation from the President. Makes sense?
Which was my very first reaction with members of my own club when this was first mooted. It's got its merits and demerits. And, well, it is, I'd like to think, a proposal as it is. And I was asking Moses earlier about the issue of communication and inclusion. I like the fact that he answers by saying that he's got meetings with the clubs as well as with a few other stakeholders, players and coaches and things like that. Ultimately, I'd like for this kind of decision because it's game changing. For it to be actually one that is where the federation has established buy-in from those stakeholders, but most importantly, for those merits and demerits to be all tabled, because sometimes, like for him, in his mind, the decision is made because he understands exactly where he's coming from and where the federation is coming from. Yeah, but you'd like to hear from all the other sides, and if there are any winners or losers, and that is in inverted commas because there shouldn't be, at least the one thing they'll know is that they had their voice heard, and 2, voices of reason stronger than theirs, or in numbers or whatever, took the day. It's not an easy one. It's I've had a think about it when I am part of club management, if you like, under those circumstances, and I know the kind of hustle that the club goes through to run for an entire season. And I'm thinking that there's 1 or 2 money men at these football clubs that will be thinking, if it's a smaller league, we'll perhaps manage, because they're barely breaking even. Most of them actually are barely keeping their heads above the water. But again, there's a few other sides to the coin. I was a player before, and I'm thinking, if in my day direct cooperation didn't exist because you only had 12, 16 clubs, 12 and not 16 clubs? Would I have been a National Football League player? Would I be boasting that on my CV today, or would I have actually gained some of the intangibles that I did because of having been involved? It's like I said, it's one personally that I like to continue to think about, but I'd like to hear from a few other people. Like I said, I'm just happy that there's involvement from a few other stakeholders. When this first came out, it looked like a decision made, sealed, which is why...
Let me quickly cross over to Mwangusha. 16 against 12.
Yeah.
First of all, do you understand where the clubs are coming from, but also do you understand where the Foofa president is coming from?
Of course, Foofa make their case by saying they want the quality of the game to improve, less games. But then there's an issue of deciding, for example, playing two, the league won't be as it is now. There will be playoffs. That in itself, another, whole formula altogether. So quite a few things that Foofa are raising, but of course the clubs are worried about, the talent that should be coming through, not being able to come through. And of course, going down and losing employment, like you said. But for me, the point here is the president and Foofa said the proposal is open to stakeholders and clubs. Of course, I was a bit, disappointed when the president later came out to say those who were against the proposal were enemies of the game, yet it was open to debate. But now, when it comes to the clubs taking in proposals, are these proposals for formality or
a connection problem in there with Mr. Andrew Mwangusha, but he had really made his point already. Now let's do this. Let's pick calls so we can wrap this at once. And you can answer as many questions as you can. A small technical problem there. We probably shall still try and get some more reaction from Mwangusha. All right, the number is 0778 722 784. I'll read that one more time in case you have I think we should take about 5 phone calls, 5 or 6. 0778 722 784. Do we have someone online already? Good evening and a warm welcome to the press box. Hello, good evening. Please make sure when you call us, as a matter of fact, to reduce the volume on your TV set or walk away from your TV set as well so that we can have very good feedback from you. Good evening.
Hello. Mr.
Yes, what's your name, my friend? Welcome to the press box.
This is Chika.
Tell me.
I wanted to talk to Mr. Magogo about the clubs because what I know about the number of clubs. Hello?
Yes, I can hear you, my brother.
Yeah, the number of clubs. We need that number of clubs mainly because if you just start comparing the clubs, the big clubs and the small clubs, in Uganda it seems we don't have even that. Apart from KCC and Vipers, is there any club which is able to do what Mr. Magogo is thinking of? And let's compare our league with the in Europe. Even Barcelona and EIBA, they're not the same. The infrastructure, the payments, they are not the same. So, if our ancestors, they manage those big clubs, the number of clubs, then why not this generation? So, I think, let's get ways to cope up with that. At least let's set the infrastructure, and everything will go on. We love those clubs. We want them so that the league is competitive enough.
Okay.
12 clubs cannot be competitive anymore. So how many games will we be having?